The fluorescent lights in courtroom 7B hummed like dying wasps overhead. Aaliyah Moore stood alone behind the defendant's table, her fingers clutching the worn leather strap of a handbag that had seen better years, just like her. The whispers crawled across the gallery like spiders. No lawyer? Poor thing. What did she expect? Aaliyah's black dress, the only professional outfit she owned, felt suddenly too tight around her throat. She'd bought it for her mother's funeral 6 months ago. Now she wore it to watch her marriage get buried, too. Across the aisle, Darren Cole leaned back in his chair like a king surveying his conquered territory. His lawyer, a silver-haired man in a suit worth more than Aaliyah's annual rent, whispered something that made Darren's mouth curl into that familiar, cruel smile. Beside him sat her the mistress. Red dress, red lips, red nails tapping impatiently against her designer phone. She didn't even bother looking up, as if Aaliyah wasn't worth the effort of acknowledgement. The judge, a tired-looking woman with reading glasses on a chain, shuffled papers. "Miss Moore, I see you're representing yourself today?" Before Aaliyah could respond, Darren's voice sliced through the room. "Your Honor, my ex-wife clearly can't even afford a lawyer." He gestured at her dismissively, and Aaliyah felt every eye in the courtroom follow his hand. "I warned everyone, she's nothing without me. I lifted her from the streets, gave her a life, and this is the thanks I get? She fights me for assets I earned?" The mistress giggled, a high, crystalline sound that made Aaliyah's stomach turn. This was the same man who once whispered promises in the dark, the same man who held her when her foster mother died, the same man who told her she was beautiful when she couldn't see it herself, until he started reminding her where she came from, until "I love you" became "you're lucky I chose you," until the night her mother died and he left her crying on the bathroom floor to go meet that woman. Darren leaned forward, his voice dripping with mock concern. "Maybe the court should donate some money for her bus fare home." The lawyer smirked. The mistress scrolled through her phone. Aaliyah's hands trembled. Her chest felt like it was caving in. The judge sighed, lifting her gavel. "Mr. Cole, please refrain from—" Bang! The courtroom doors exploded open. Every head whipped toward the entrance. Aaliyah's breath caught in her throat. 6 men in identical black suits entered first, moving with military precision, their expressions carved from stone. They fanned out along the back wall like silent sentinels. Then he walked in, tall, sharp-featured, eyes like winter. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. He moved through the aisle with the kind of confidence that made lawyers straighten their ties and judges forget their next words. His suit was expensive, but understated. The kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. He walked straight to Aaliyah, stopped, and gently draped his coat over her trembling shoulders. But what happened next? Stay with me. Like and subscribe if you believe karma is real. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because what walks through that door will change everything. Time seemed to fracture. As the stranger's coat settled around Aaliyah's shoulders, warm, smelling faintly of cedar and something foreign, something expensive, her mind tumbled backward through the months that had brought her to this moment. 6 months earlier, Aaliyah had been 28 years old and drowning, not in water, in debt, in grief, in the suffocating realization that the man she'd trusted with her heart had been slowly dismantling her soul. She grew up in foster care, 7 different homes before she aged out at 18. No family, no safety net, just a fierce determination to prove she was worth something. She'd worked double shifts at a diner to put herself through community college, studying business administration between orders of eggs and coffee refills. That's where she met Darren Cole. He was 25, a junior associate at a small law firm, and he looked at her like she mattered, like she was more than a waitress with community college dreams. He called her beautiful. He said he'd take care of her. "You don't have to struggle anymore, Aaliyah. Let me help you." It felt like being saved. It was actually the beginning of her imprisonment. The help came with conditions. Unspoken at first, then louder. "Don't go back to school. You don't need it." "Why do you need friends? You have me. That dress is too tight. People will think you're cheap. You came from nothing. Remember that." Each comment chipped away at her like water eroding stone. By the time she realized what was happening, she'd quit school, lost contact with her few friends, and believed every word he said about her worth. Then her mother, her biological mother who'd given her up for adoption but reconnected when Aaliyah was 25, got sick. Cancer. Fast and vicious. Aaliyah spent every free moment at her bedside, holding the hand of a woman she was just beginning to know and love. Her mother was sharp, funny, resilient despite everything. During those long hospital nights, she'd look at Aaliyah with fierce eyes. Baby girl, listen to me. Never let a man define your worth. You hear me? Not any man. You're the descendant of women who survived impossible things. Don't you dare shrink yourself to fit into someone else's small vision. The night her mother died, Aaliyah came home to find Darren's side of the closet empty. A note on the table. I can't do this anymore. You've become too much work. She found out about the mistress 3 days later through a mutual acquaintance's pitying text message. That was 6 months ago. Since then, Aaliyah had done something she never thought she was strong enough to do. She survived. She worked 3 jobs, cleaned offices at dawn, served lunch at a downtown cafe, tended bar at night at a harbor restaurant that catered to shipping crews and late-night wanderers. The harbor job became her refuge. The pay was decent. The customers left her alone. The night manager, an older woman named Gloria, had a soft spot for people rebuilding their lives. And then there was the man who always sat in the corner booth. He started coming in 3 months ago. Always alone, always after midnight. He ordered black coffee and sat by the window overlooking the docks, reading or working on a laptop that looked government-issued. He never bothered her with small talk. Never stared, just left generous tips and the occasional quiet thank you in an accent she couldn't quite place. Asian, she thought. Korean, maybe. One night, exhausted and running on 2 hours of sleep, Aaliyah stumbled carrying a tray of dishes. Strong hands caught her before she hit the ground. His hands. Careful, he said softly. His eyes were dark, intelligent, sad. Thank you, she whispered. You work too much, he observed, helping her steady the tray. I work enough to survive. He studied her face like he was seeing her, really seeing her, for the first time. You deserve more than survival. Something in his voice cracked open a door in her chest she'd thought was permanently sealed. After that night, they talked. Small conversations that grew longer. She learned he was in shipping, that he traveled constantly, that he understood loneliness. She never knew his last name. She never asked what kind of shipping kept him up past midnight with bruises occasionally visible beneath his expensive clothes. She just knew that when he looked at her, she felt like a person again. Not an ex-wife, not a foster kid, not Darren's discarded mistake, just Aaliyah. 2 months ago, walking her to her car after closing, he'd pulled her back gently. Those men across the street, they've been watching the cafe. Are they watching you? She asked. His silence was answer enough. Then let me walk you to wherever you're going, she said. He smiled, actually smiled. You would protect me, someone should. Now, standing in this courtroom with his coat around her shoulders, Aaliyah understood. He'd been preparing to protect her too. The man turned to face the courtroom. Darren half rose from his chair, confusion twisting into territorial anger. Who the hell are you? The stranger's voice was quiet, controlled, deadly. I am her lawyer now. 4 words. They detonated like grenades. Darren's silver-haired attorney went rigid, his face draining of color. He leaned toward Darren, whispering urgently, frantically. Aaliyah caught fragments. Can't be, Kang. Serious problem. The mistress, however, laughed, a brittle, nervous sound. She stood, her red dress bright as a warning signal. Excuse me, but you can't just walk into a courtroom and, the man Kang the lawyer had said, turned his winter eyes on her. When he spoke, his accent carried the precise edges of someone who'd learned English in expensive international schools. Miss Chen, or should I say, Miss Rebecca Chen of Chen Investigations. Tell me, does my fiancé's ex-husband know he's been sleeping with a private investigator he hired? Or did you forget to mention that detail when you decided to make your arrangement permanent? The mistress's face went white. She sat down hard. Darren stared at her, betrayal and confusion warring on his features. What is he talking about? Jamin, Aaliyah's mind supplied the name somehow, pulled from distant memory of his signature on cafe receipts, ignored him. He snapped his fingers once. 3 of his men moved forward with synchronized precision. They placed leather folders on the judge's bench. The judge opened the first one, her eyebrows rising with each page she turned. Your Honor, Jae-min said smoothly. I apologize for the dramatic entrance. I'm Kang Jae-min, and as of 1 hour ago, I am Ms. Moore's legal representation. I've filed the appropriate paperwork with the clerk's office. You'll find everything in order. The judge studied him over her reading glasses. Mr. Kang, this is highly irregular. Yes, Your Honor. However, I believe you'll find the evidence I've compiled regarding Mr. Cole's conduct makes irregularity appropriate. Darren found his voice. This is insane. You can't just... Who even are you? Jamin turned to him fully. In the harsh courtroom lighting, Aaliyah could see him clearly for the first time. Sharp cheekbones, a small scar above his left eyebrow, eyes that had seen things, terrible things, and remembered all of them. I'm the man who owns the bank that holds your mortgage, Mr. Cole. His voice never rose, never hardened. That made it more terrifying. I'm the investor who funds your law firm's operating capital, and as of this morning, I'm the new owner of the building at 12147 Riverside Drive, the luxury apartment where Miss Chen here has been living. On your dime. Darren's lawyer stood abruptly. Your Honor, I need to request a recess. Denied, the judge said sharply, still reading through the documents. Mr. Harrison, sit down. Darren's face had gone from red to purple. You can't. This is Aaliyah. He turned to her desperately. What the hell is this? Who is this man? Aaliyah opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her heart was hammering so hard she thought her ribs might crack. Jamin's hand came to rest gently on her shoulder, a gesture so familiar it made her chest ache. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the courtroom. Mr. Cole, you had the opportunity to treat this woman with dignity. You chose cruelty instead. You abandoned her the night her mother died. You've spent the last 6 months attempting to financially destroy her through legal manipulation and harassment. And you did all this while embezzling from your own clients to fund your lifestyle and your relationship with Miss Chen. He opened another folder, sliding documents across to the judge. Account transfers, property records, communications between Mr. Cole and Miss Chen dating back 8 months, 2 months before he filed for divorce, evidence of witness tampering, evidence of fraud. The judge's expression had gone from tired to thunderous. Jamin continued, his tone almost conversational. Your Honor, my fiancé has suffered enough. I would like to end this matter quickly and completely. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. Fiancé. The courtroom erupted. Whispers became shouts. The bailiff called for order. Aaliyah's vision blurred with tears. She looked up at Jae-min, this man who'd sat in her cafe for months, who'd held her under harbor lights, who'd kissed her like she was precious, and saw something fierce and protective burning behind his careful control. He'd never said the word before. They'd never discussed marriage. They'd barely defined what they were to each other. But he'd walked into this courtroom and claimed her in front of everyone. You're lying, Darren spat. You're together? Her? What kind of man wants someone's leftovers? Jamin moved. Fast. His men moved faster, blocking him before he could reach Darren. He spoke through clenched teeth, his accent thickening. Say one more word about her. Please. I'm hoping you will. The judge slammed her gavel. Mr. Kang, control yourself. Jamin straightened his suit, his composure sliding back into place like armor. My apologies, Your Honor. But when he looked down at Aaliyah, his eyes were soft, questioning. Is this okay? His expression asked. Did I overstep? She couldn't speak, could barely breathe, but she reached up and placed her hand over his where it still rested on her shoulder. Yes, she thought desperately. Yes, yes, yes. Darren's lawyer was gathering his things. Your Honor, I'm withdrawing from this case effective immediately. Mr. Harrison, I cannot ethically continue. I was not made aware of the full circumstances. He walked out. Darren sat alone. The judge called a 15-minute recess. Aaliyah found herself in a small conference room adjacent to the courtroom, Jamin standing by the window, his men positioned outside the door like statues. You called me your fiancé, Aaliyah said quietly. He didn't turn around. I needed legal standing. It gives me certain rights to intervene on your behalf. That's the only reason? Now he turned, looked at her with those devastating eyes. No. The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. How did we get here? She whispered. His expression softened. You know how. And she did. 3 months ago. The night shift at the cafe had been slow. Aaliyah had been reading a borrowed law textbook during her break, trying to understand the divorce papers Darren's lawyers kept burying her in. "You're studying law?" The man in the corner booth, Jamin, though she didn't know his name yet, spoke for the first time beyond ordering. Trying to understand it, she'd admitted. "I'm going through a divorce. I can't afford a lawyer." "What kind of divorce?" "The kind where he gets everything and I get blamed for it." He'd studied her for a long moment. Then, "May I?" She'd slid the textbook across to him. He'd read the relevant passages, then explained them in clear, simple terms that made everything suddenly make sense. "You're good at this," she'd said. "I've had expensive lawyers. You learn." That became their routine. He'd come in, she'd serve him coffee, they'd talk about law, about contracts, about loopholes, then about other things. Her mother, his family is in Korea, her dreams, his regrets. "What do you do?" she'd asked one night. "Import-export, shipping, logistics." "That sounds lonely." "It is." The night she'd stumbled with the tray, he'd caught her, and for a moment, one electric, impossible moment, they'd stood close enough to share breath. "You're exhausted," he'd murmured. "I'm surviving. That's not enough. That's all I've got." 2 weeks later, he'd walked her to her car at 3 a.m. She'd noticed the bruise on his jaw. "Rough shipping day?" she'd asked. "Something like that. Does your import-export job usually involve fistfights?" He'd almost smiled. "Sometimes." "Are you in danger?" "Probably. Should I be worried about you?" He'd stopped walking, turned to her. "Aaliyah, my life is dangerous. The people I deal with are dangerous. If you're smart, you'll forget you ever met me." She should have listened. Instead, she'd stepped closer. "Everyone's life is dangerous when you have nothing to lose." He'd kissed her then. Desperate and gentle and terrifying. Under the harbor lights, with the sound of water lapping against piers, Aaliyah had felt alive for the first time since her mother died. A knock on the conference room door yanked her back to the present. One of Jamin's men entered, spoke rapid Korean. Jamin's jaw tightened. "What is it?" Aaliyah asked. "Darren's making calls, trying to find dirt on me, on us." He looked at her. "Are you ready for this to get ugly?" "It's already ugly. It's going to get worse." The bailiff appeared. Court's resuming. Back in the courtroom, Darren had somehow found new representation, a younger lawyer who looked nervous and underprepared. The judge addressed Jamin. "Mr. Kang, you have 48 hours to file proper documentation and evidence. This court will reconvene. Your Honor, with respect, we can conclude this matter today." Jamin opened his briefcase, pulled out document after document. Property division. Mr. Cole claims ownership of the marital home. However, the mortgage was paid with funds from a joint account, an account he drained 3 days after filing for divorce. The payments stopped. The bank initiated foreclosure proceedings. He slid papers to the judge. Spousal support. Mr. Cole claims he cannot afford to pay Miss Moore anything. However, he's been paying $4,500 monthly rent for Miss Chen's apartment, using funds embezzled from clients' settlement accounts at his firm. I have statements from 3 clients willing to testify. Darren's new lawyer looked ill. Your Honor, I need time to review. You'll have your time, counsel. Continue, Mr. Kang. Jamin's voice remained level, clinical. Miss Chen was originally hired by Mr. Cole as a private investigator to follow Miss Moore, to gather evidence for this divorce. Instead, Miss Chen and Mr. Cole began an affair. Mr. Cole has paid her over $47,000 in the last 6 months, money that should have been marital property. The judge looked at Darren with open disgust. Darren lunged to his feet. This is bullshit. Your Honor, this woman, my ex-wife, she came from nothing. Foster care. She was a waitress when I met her, and now she's shacked up with some... Careful, Jamin said softly. Darren's face twisted with rage and desperation. You want to know about her past, Your Honor? She's a nobody. She's... Try it, Jamin interrupted. His voice was still quiet, still controlled, but something dangerous flickered beneath. Please, tell the court about her past. Tell them how she worked 3 jobs, how she put herself through college, how she sat beside her dying mother while you abandoned her. Under the table, Aaliyah reached for his hand, found it, squeezed. He looked down at their joined hands, then at her face. His expression softened impossibly. I told you, he whispered, too low for anyone else to hear. I protect what's mine. Darren was laughing now, a manic, desperate sound that echoed off the courtroom walls. You want to know who this man really is? He fumbled in his briefcase, pulled out a folded newspaper, and slammed it on the table. Your Honor, I did my research during that recess. The bailiff retrieved the paper and handed it to the judge. Her eyes widened. Darren's voice rose triumphantly. Kang Jae-min! Kang Jae-min! He's a suspected crime lord. He controls half the shipping routes in Asia. His family, he pointed an accusatory finger, his family built their empire on smuggling, extortion, and money laundering. The courtroom detonated into chaos. Gasps, whispers becoming shouts. My ex-wife is engaged to a criminal. The judge banged her gavel repeatedly. Order! Order in this court! She looked at Jae-min, and for the first time, something like uncertainty crossed her face. Mr. Kang, is this true? Jae-min stood slowly. His men tensed, hands moving toward their jackets. He raised one hand slightly, a gesture that stopped them cold. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that silenced the room completely. I have never been convicted of any crime, Your Honor. My shipping company operates legally in 17 countries. My import businesses are licensed and audited annually. My investments are transparent. He paused. My family's history is complicated, but I am not my father's sins. He's lying, Darren shouted. Google him. The Korean authorities have been investigating him for years. He's untouchable, Jae-min finished coldly. Because I've broken no laws. Investigations without evidence tend to conclude that way. Aaliyah felt the room spinning. She stared at Jae-min's profile, the sharp line of his jaw, the controlled stillness of his posture. Who are you? She thought. Really? As if reading her mind, Jae-min turned to look at her. In his eyes, she saw an apology, resignation, fear, not fear of the courtroom, fear of losing her. Your Honor, he continued, I came to this country 3 months ago because there was a dispute in my business, competing interests attempting to remove me from certain positions. I needed to disappear for a time. The cafe, Aaliyah thought. He was hiding. I found a harbor cafe where no one knew my name, where I could be invisible. His voice softened almost imperceptibly. And I met someone who treated me like a human being instead of a weapon or a target. The memory hit Aaliyah like a wave. That night, 6 weeks ago, she'd been closing up when Jae-min had suddenly stood, moved to the window, his body language screaming danger. What's wrong? She'd asked. Those men. Across the street. They've been there for an hour. She'd looked. 2 men in dark clothes watching the cafe. Watching him. Go out the back, she'd said immediately. Through the kitchen. It leads to the alley behind the fish market. They won't see you. Aaliyah. Go. Now. He hesitated, then cupped her face in his hands. You don't know what you're doing. I know you're in trouble. That's enough. She'd walked out front, made a show of locking up loudly, and chatted with the men, asked if they were lost, needed directions. Her waitress smiled bright and empty. By the time they'd brushed her off, Jae-min was gone. He'd returned 2 nights later with flowers and the truth. Those men wanted to kill me. Why? Because I refused to let them use my ships for things I won't be part of. What things? Things that hurt people who can't fight back. She'd looked at this man, this stranger who'd become familiar, and made a choice. Then I'm glad you refused. Now in the courtroom, Jae-min was still speaking. I fell in love with Miss Moore because she protected me without knowing who I was, because she had every reason to be afraid and chose courage instead. He looked directly at Darren, which is more than I can say for you, Mr. Cole. He opened another folder. Aaliyah recognized the contents with a jolt, surveillance photos of her. For the past 3 months, Mr. Cole has had Ms. Moore follow. He hired men to intimidate her employers, leading to her losing 2 jobs. He contacted landlords to prevent her from finding housing. He spread rumors at her church community. Jae-min's voice turned to ice. He did everything possible to ensure she would have nothing. No home, no income, no support. So she would have no choice but to come back to him. Aaliyah couldn't breathe. She'd thought she was paranoid. Though she was imagining the hostile landlords, the sudden job losses, the way people avoided her eyes at church. It had been Darren, all along. That's not true. Darren was standing now, his face purple with rage. You can't prove. Rebecca Chen, the mistress, suddenly spoke, her voice shaking. Yes, he can. Every eye turned to her. I was hired as a private investigator. That part was true. But Darren asked me to do more than investigate. He wanted me to. She swallowed hard. He wanted me to destroy her completely, ruin her reputation, make sure no one would hire her, make sure she'd be desperate enough to take him back. Shut up, Darren snarled. He paid me $30,000. Rebecca continued, tears streaming down her face. And then I didn't mean for it to become. She looked at Aaliyah. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. The judge's expression had gone from shock to furious. Mr. Cole, you will sit down and be silent, or I will hold you in contempt. Jamin turned to Aaliyah. In front of the entire courtroom, he took her hand. I should have told you, he said quietly, about who I am, what I come from, the danger that follows me. His thumb traced circles on her palm. But I was afraid. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of losing something that mattered. Aaliyah looked at this man, this complicated, dangerous, tender man who'd walked into her life when she was broken and never once asked her to be anything but herself. Are you a criminal? She whispered. I've done things I'm not proud of, to protect my family, to survive in a world where mercy is weakness. His eyes held hers. But I've never hurt anyone who didn't threaten someone I loved first. Am I in danger with you? He didn't lie. Yes. Would I be safer without you? Physically? Maybe. His jaw tightened. In every other way? I'll spend my life making sure you're not. The judge cleared her throat. Mr. Kang, Miss Moore, we need to address these allegations. But Aaliyah wasn't listening anymore. She was looking at Darren, at the man who'd spent 6 months trying to systematically destroy her, and then at Jamin, who'd spent 3 months quietly building her back up. The choice wasn't about safety. It was about which kind of danger she was willing to face. This court is in recess. Counsel my chambers. Now. The judge swept out, her robe billowing. Jamin squeezed Aaliyah's hand once, then followed with Darren and his nervous lawyer trailing behind. Aaliyah stood alone in the courtroom, the weight of 100 staring eyes pressing down on her. She pushed through the doors into the courthouse lobby and was immediately swallowed by chaos. Reporters, cameras, microphones shoved in her face. Miss Moore, are you really engaged to Kang Jae-min? Did you know about his criminal connections? How long have you been together? Jamin's men materialized, forming a protective barrier. They guided her through the crowd to a quieter hallway near the back exits. Aaliyah leaned against the wall, trying to catch her breath. Miss Moore, a woman approached. Mid-40s, severe suit, badge clipped to her belt. FBI. Special Agent Victoria Cross. I need to speak with you. She glanced at Jamin's men. Alone. One of them spoke into his sleeve in Korean. Aaliyah caught Jamin's name. It's okay, Aaliyah said. I'll talk to her. They moved to an empty conference room. Agent Cross closed the door, her expression hard. You know what he is. It wasn't a question. I know he's never been convicted of anything, Aaliyah said carefully. Because he's smart. Because he has lawyers and money and connections that make prosecution nearly impossible. Cross leaned forward. But we know what he's involved in. Smuggling, illegal arms trading, associations with organized crime families across 3 continents. Then why isn't he in prison? We're working on it. Cross pulled out a photograph, slid it across. This was taken 2 weeks ago in Seoul. That's Kang Jae-min meeting with known members of the Jade Dragon Syndicate. These people traffic weapons, Ms. Moore. They traffic people. Aaliyah's stomach turned. She stared at the photo. Jae-min in a dark suit sitting across from men whose faces radiated violence. Walk away now, Cross said quietly. While you still can, because when we build our case, and we will, everyone connected to him goes down too, including you. I haven't done anything illegal. You're living with him. You're engaged to him. Cross's voice softened slightly. I've seen this pattern before. Women who get involved with men like Kang think they're different. I think they're special. I think love will protect them. She stood. It won't. His enemies will use you to hurt him, will use you to prosecute him. Either way, you lose. She left Aaliyah sitting alone with the photograph. The door opened again. Not Agent Cross. Jamin. He saw the photo on the table. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. She's right, he said quietly. About all of it. Aaliyah looked up at him. Were you meeting with criminals? I was meeting with people who wanted to discuss a business arrangement. I declined. He sat across from her, suddenly looking exhausted. My father built an empire on both sides of the law. When he died, I inherited everything, the legitimate businesses and the complicated relationships. Some days I feel like I'm holding back a flood with my bare hands. Why don't you just walk away from it? Because the people who work for me The legitimate employees, the families who depend on those jobs, they'd be vulnerable. The same criminals who want to use my shipping routes would take over everything, and they wouldn't be as selective as I am about what they transport. He reached for her hand, then stopped himself. If you want to leave, I'll still finish this case. I'll make sure Darren can never hurt you again, and then I'll disappear from your life. His voice cracked slightly. You owe me nothing, Aaliyah. She stood abruptly and walked to the window. Outside, reporters still swarmed the courthouse steps. Her phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. Smart girl, walking away yet? Or do you like being dead weight? DC Darren. Her hands shook with rage. Another text. He'll get you killed. You were safer with me. At least I was predictable. The words hit like poison darts, embedding in all her old wounds. The voice in her head that still sometimes whispered Darren's cruelties. You're nothing. You need me. You can't survive alone. Was he right? Was she trading one prison for another, just with better decor? She thought about her mother's last words. Don't shrink yourself for any man. But was Jamin choosing herself, or expanding into something terrifying and real? Behind her, Jamin spoke softly. You're afraid. Yes, you should be. My world is dangerous. Your world, she said slowly, turning to face him. Or you? Both. At least he was honest. I need air, she whispered. She walked out before he could respond, pushing past his men, ignoring their protests. She made it to a side exit, stumbled into an alley where delivery trucks unloaded supplies, leaned against the brick wall and tried to remember how to breathe. What did she want? Really want? Safety? She'd been safe with Darren and it had nearly destroyed her. Love? She'd loved Darren once and he'd twisted that love into a weapon. Freedom, she thought. I want freedom. But freedom to do what? Run? Hide? Survive alone? Or freedom to choose, even if that choice was dangerous? The sound of footsteps made her tense. Darren emerged from the shadows. Get away from me, Aaliyah said. I'm trying to save you. He moved closer, his expression almost pleading. You think he'll protect you forever? His enemies will use you to destroy him. You'll be a target for the rest of your life. That's not your concern anymore. You were mine. The pleading cracked, revealing rage underneath. I made you. I gave you everything, and this is how you repay. The gunshot cracked through the air like thunder. Aaliyah screamed. Darren hit the ground. When you're ready, send the next part. But he wasn't shot. He dropped in panic. Chaos erupted, people running, sirens wailing, Jamin's men swarming the alley, weapons drawn, shouting in Korean, and Aaliyah understood with perfect, crystalline clarity. This was her life now if she stayed with him. Violence, danger, fear, but also being seen, being protected, being loved fiercely. Jamin appeared, pulling her against him, shielding her body with his. Are you hurt? His hands ran over her frantically, checking for injuries. No, I'm fine. Police flooded the alley. The shot had come from a rooftop professional sniper. Missed intentionally, one officer suggested. A warning. Aaliyah looked at Jamin, really looked at him. His world wanted him dead. And she had a choice to make. Aaliyah didn't think. She ran. Not away from the gunshot. Toward it. Toward the center of the chaos where Jamin's men had formed a tight circle, weapons drawn, barking orders in Korean. Let me through, she shouted. They parted reluctantly. And there he was. Jamin, unharmed but coiled like a spring, his eyes scanning rooftops with the practiced alertness of someone who'd lived through this before. She crashed into him. His arms came around her automatically, protective. Aaliyah, what are you? You need to get inside. It's not safe. I'm not leaving. He pulled back to look at her face. What? I'm not leaving. Her voice was shaking but fierce. Not now. Not ever. Aaliyah, you don't understand what you're saying. Someone just tried to send you a message. I know. She gripped his suit jacket in her fists. I know what this is. I know what you are. I've known for weeks. Surprise flickered across his face. What? Did you think I wouldn't look? Wouldn't you research? She laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. I'm not stupid, Jamin. I know about the Kang family. I know about your father's empire. I know about the shipping routes and the territories and the families who want you dead. She'd spent hours in library computer labs, reading everything she could find. Korean news articles run through translation software, business journals, police reports that went nowhere. She'd learned his world while falling in love with him. I stayed anyway, she continued. I chose you anyway. When you were hunted by the world, you found safety with me. Now you're hunted again, and I choose to stay." His hands cupped her face. "It's not too late. You can still walk away. I'll finish the case, protect you from Darren, and then... And then what? I go back to being alone? Being safe?" She shook her head fiercely. "I was safe with Darren. He never shot at me. He just slowly murdered who I was from the inside." Police were arriving, securing the area. An officer approached, asking questions. One of Jamin's men intercepted him smoothly. Aaliyah reached into her purse, the worn bag she'd been clutching all day, and pulled out a flash drive. "I haven't just been learning about you," she said quietly. "I've been protecting you too." Jamin stared at the driver. "What is this?" "Insurance. Information. The cafe where I work, it's frequented by dock workers, shipping crews, people who move through the harbor." She smiled slightly. "People talk when they think no one important is listening to a waitress. I've been recording conversations for 6 weeks about Darren's schemes, his plans." She'd bought a cheap voice recorder with tip money, kept it in her apron pocket, listened to men brag about jobs they'd been hired for, following women, intimidating employers, worse things. "He wasn't just trying to financially destroy me," she continued. "He hired someone to stage a break-in at my apartment, make it look like I was unstable, paranoid. He planned to use it in court to prove I was mentally unfit." Jamin's expression went deadly. "When?" "Next week. I have the date. The name of the man he hired. Recordings of their phone calls. Darren's stupid enough to discuss plans in public." She met his eyes. "I'm not helpless. I've been building my own case against him. I just didn't have the legal power to use it until today." Something shifted in Jamin's face. He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time, truly seeing her. "You've been protecting yourself this whole time. I've been protecting us." She stepped closer. "You think you're the only one who knows how to survive dangerous people? I grew up in foster care. I learned early that the world doesn't save you. You save yourself, or you find people worth fighting beside." The police finished their initial sweep. The sniper was gone. Professional, likely a warning shot. Jamin's security chief approached, spoke rapid Korean. Jamin responded in the same language, his tone commanding. Then he turned back to Aaliyah. "The shot was a message from a family in Busan who wants to renegotiate territory agreements. They're reminding me I have," he hesitated, "vulnerabilities now." "You mean me?" "Yes." "Good." At his shocked expression, she continued, "Let them know you have something to lose. Let them know that attacking me means declaring war on you, because I'm not going anywhere." She pulled out her phone, showed him the research she'd compiled. Names, connections, business dealings. She'd been mapping his world while loving him. "You've been preparing," he said wonderingly, "for this exact moment, when I'd have to choose between safety and love, between surviving and living." She took his hand. "I choose you. I choose this life. Danger and all." Around them, police radios crackled. Reporters were being held back at the alley entrance. Darren had disappeared back into the courthouse, probably terrified by the gunshot. Jamin looked at their joined hands, then at her face. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "You're not a victim anymore. I never was. I just forgot for a while." She smiled. "You reminded me. We need to go back to court, finish this. Then let's finish it." She pat her. He pulled her close, pressed his forehead to hers. "If you stay with me, truly stay, your life will never be safe again. There will always be threats, always enemies. I can protect you, but I can't promise you peace. I don't want peace, I want life." She looked up at him. "I want freedom from Darren, and I want a future with you. Both, no compromises." "Then we end this," Jamin said, "together." They walked back toward the courthouse, his men forming a protective corridor. At the entrance, with cameras flashing and reporters shouting questions, Jamin stopped. I turned to her and kissed her. Not gently, not carefully, but with the desperate intensity of two people who might not survive tomorrow but refuse to waste today. When they broke apart, Aaliyah was breathing hard, her lips tingling. "In case I forget to say it later," he murmured against her mouth, "I love you. I've loved you since the night you protected me, without knowing if I deserved it." "I love you too," she whispered back. "Now let's go destroy my ex-husband." They walked into the courthouse holding hands, ready to face whatever came next. Together. The courtroom felt different now. The whispers had changed from judgment to fascination. People leaned forward in their seats. Even the judge looked grimly invested as she called the court back to order. "Miss Moore," Jamin said quietly, "I need you to take the stand." Aaliyah's heart was hammered. "Me? You. Your voice. Your story." He squeezed her hand. "Trust me." She stood, walked to the witness stand on shaking legs. The bailiff swore her in. She placed her hand on the Bible and promised to tell the truth. She intended to tell all of it. Jamin approached with a folder. "Miss Moore, can you tell the court about your marriage to Darren Cole?" She looked at Darren, slumped in his chair, his new lawyer looking ready to bolt. Darren wouldn't meet her eyes. "I thought he saved me," Aaliyah began. "I was 22, working as a waitress, trying to build something from nothing. He was a lawyer, educated, successful. When he showed interest in me, I felt chosen." Her voice grew stronger. "But love shouldn't make you smaller." And that's what Darren did. Every day he reminded me where I came from. Every achievement I had, he diminished. When I wanted to finish my degree, he said I didn't need it. He'd take care of me. When I made friends, he found reasons why they were bad influences. Objection. Darren's lawyer stood weakly. Relevance? "I'm establishing a pattern of abuse," Jamin said smoothly. "It's directly relevant to Mr. Cole's actions following their separation." Overruled. Continue, Ms. Moore. Aaliyah pulled out the flash drive, her insurance. 6 months ago, my mother died. Darren left me that same night. He filed for divorce 3 days later while I was planning her funeral. She heard someone in the gallery gasp. But he didn't just leave. He systematically tried to destroy me. She handed the flash drive to the bailiff, who loaded it into the court's system. "I have recordings, evidence. Darren hired people to follow me, to sabotage my job interviews, to intimidate my employers." Audio played through the courtroom speakers. Darren's voice unmistakable, discussing payments to make sure she has nowhere to go. The judge's expression turned thunderous. "I have bank statements showing he drained our joint account, money meant for my mother's medical bills to pay for his mistress's apartment." Documents appeared on the courtroom screens, numbers that told the story of systematic theft. "And I have this." Aaliyah pulled out her phone, played a voice recording from 2 weeks ago. She'd been cleaning tables when she'd overheard a conversation. Cole's paying $5,000 for a simple break-in. Mess up the place, steal some valuables, make her think she's being targeted. Says he needs her to look unstable for the divorce. Darren went white. Objection. That recording is inadmissible. It's evidence of conspiracy to commit burglary and harassment, Jamin interjected, and witness intimidation, all relevant to the divorce proceedings and to Mr. Cole's fitness for spousal support claims. The judge looked at Darren with open disgust. "Mr. Cole, do you have anything to say?" Darren exploded from his chair. "This is bullshit. She's lying. She was nothing when I met her. Nothing. A foster care reject. A waitress. I made her into something respectable, and this is how. Sit down," the judge commanded. "She repays me by whoring herself out to some Korean gangster who..." Bailiff. Bailiff. Security moved toward Darren. He shook them off, his face purple with rage, spit flying as he screamed. "You were a nobody, Aaliyah. I gave you everything. You think you'll survive without me? You'll be on the streets where you belong." Jamin started to move, but Aaliyah held up her hand. She stood, faced Darren directly. "I survived foster care. I survived losing my mother. I survived you." Her voice was steel. "And I'll thrive without you." Rebecca Chen, the mistress, stood suddenly, her face streaked with tears. "Your Honor, I need to testify." Everyone turned to stare. "Darren paid me $50,000 total, 30 to investigate Aaliyah and destroy her reputation, 20 more to..." She swallowed hard. "To seduce him, to become his girlfriend so publicly that Aaliyah would look abandoned and desperate in court. It was all planned." "You bitch!" Darren lunged toward her. Security grabbed him, slammed him back into his chair. Jamin approached the bench calmly. "Your Honor, I have one more piece of evidence." He presented a document with the deliberate care of a man playing his final card. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Cole attempted to hire someone to physically assault Miss Moore, to teach her a lesson about defying him in court. Jamin's voice was ice. "That person was working for me. The entire conversation was recorded. I've forwarded this information to the district attorney's office. Criminal charges are pending." The courtroom erupted. The judge slammed her gavel repeatedly. "Order!" Mr. Cole, you are hereby held in contempt. Bailiff, remove him. Darren was screaming, incoherent rage and threats, as security dragged him toward the doors. Rebecca Chen sat down heavily, sobbing into her hands. Police officers moved to either side of her chair. The judge took off her glasses, rubbed her eyes, then looked at Aaliyah with something like respect. Miss Moore, after reviewing all evidence presented today, I'm granting your divorce immediately. All marital assets will be divided equitably, weighted heavily in your favor given Mr. Cole's conduct. He will pay spousal support and restitution for the funds he stole. A permanent restraining order is hereby issued. She turned to where Darren was still struggling against the bailiffs. Mr. Cole, this case is being forwarded to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. You're facing charges of harassment, conspiracy, embezzlement, and attempted assault. I suggest you hire better lawyers than the one you had today. Darren's screams echoed as they dragged him from the courtroom. It was over. Aaliyah's legs gave out. Jamin caught her, held her as she shook with relief and shock and exhausted triumph. Outside, the media frenzy was deafening. Cameras, questions, chaos. Jamin's men surrounded them, creating a path to a black car waiting at the curb. A reporter broke through. Miss Moore, is it true you're engaged to Kang Jamin? Aaliyah looked at the reporter, then at Jamin. His expression was carefully neutral, giving her the choice. Yes, she said clearly. Yes, I am. As they drove away, Jamin turned to her, his face serious. My rivals know about you now. They'll use you to hurt me. Our life together will never be safe. Aaliyah leaned over and kissed him, fierce and certain. Then we'd better be worth it, she whispered against his mouth. 3 months later, Aaliyah stood in the floor-to-ceiling windows of their penthouse, watching the city lights blur into constellations below. Seoul sprawled beneath her like a circuit board, glowing, alive, foreign, and somehow home. Her law school textbooks sat stacked on the dining table. Columbia had offered her a full scholarship after reading her personal essay, a brutal, honest account of surviving Darren and finding herself in the process. Jamin had connections, yes, but the acceptance letter was hers alone. She still worked at the Harbor Cafe 3 nights a week, not because she needed the money, but because she needed the reminder. She'd built herself up from nothing once. She could do it again if necessary. Ready? Jamin emerged from his office, adjusting his cufflinks. He had a meeting with shipping partners, the legitimate kind, he'd assured her with a slight smile. She'd learned to navigate his world these past months, knew his security team by name, Jin, who loved terrible puns, Marcus, who brought her coffee without asking, Yuki, who taught her basic self-defense. She attended business dinners, learned to read the subtle power dynamics in rooms full of dangerous men. And she'd been learning Korean, haltingly, awkwardly, but learning. His mother had visited last month, an elegant woman with steel in her spine and warmth in her eyes. She'd taken Aaliyah's hands and spoken in careful English. You make my son remember he is human. Thank you. Aaliyah looked down at her engagement ring. Simple, a single diamond she'd chosen herself from a small jeweler in Brooklyn. Not the enormous rock Darren had given her years ago, the one she'd pawned to pay rent. This ring meant choice, partnership, love that didn't require her to shrink. Life wasn't perfect. There were still threats, veiled warnings from rival families, suspicious cars that followed them sometimes. Bodyguards accompanied her to class. Some nights she couldn't sleep, wondering if today would be the day someone succeeded in hurting Jamin. But they faced it together. Let's stop by the cafe first, she said. 20 minutes later, they sat in the corner booth where they'd first really seen each other. Aaliyah had picked up a shift, served coffee to familiar faces, then slid into the seat across from Jamin during her break. The harbor stretched before them, ships moving through dark water like dreams. Regrets? He asked softly. She smiled. About you? Never. About Darren? She paused. Only that I didn't leave sooner. He was sentenced yesterday. 5 years. Rebecca Chen testified against him in exchange for probation. It's really over. Yes. Jamin's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression shifting to the careful neutrality he wore when dealing with his other world. The dangerous world. He started to pull his hand away to answer. Aaliyah covered it with hers. Take the call, she said. I'm not going anywhere. He answered in rapid Korean, all business, negotiating something that probably involved more risk than she wanted to know about. but he kept holding her hand. When her break ended, she stood, kissed his temple, and returned to work. He watched her move through the cafe, this woman who'd chosen him despite everything, who'd chosen herself first. Some love is war, Aaliyah thought, refilling coffee cups, smiling at regulars. Some love is dangerous, but I'd rather fight beside him than hide alone. I'm finally free, not because he saved me, but because I chose to save myself, and then I chose him. Jamin finished his call, stood, left money on the table with his usual generous tip. At the cafe entrance, he waited for her shift to end. When she emerged an hour later, he took her hand. The harbor stretched before them. Dark water, distant lights, ships moving toward unknown destinations. Somewhere in the city, danger waited. It always would. But tonight, they walked into it together. The doors opened, and they stepped into the dangerous, beautiful night. Two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something worth fighting for. Free. Together. Alive.